Okay, we are reading Chapter 10 of Variant. Hopefully we won't get too much talking in the background so that we can all hear the story. Alright, Chapter 10. As much as I was trying to fight it, I was getting more used to school. Every morning I'd get up, listen to Iceman, shower, and get dressed. That TV screen ruled our life. It told us where to be, when to be there, and what to wear. It had begun showing a countdown to the dance, too, which still struck me as ridiculous. In class, we finished our section on aesthetics. It had only lasted a week, and Laura moved us into a riveting course on field surveying techniques. Whoever was choosing the classes here seemed to be doing it at random. When I was back in a real school, I'd taken enough biology and chemistry to learn the scientific method and the testing of hypotheses. If someone really was watching us on those security cameras, experimenting on us like rats in a cage, the study was screwed up. Nothing they were doing could have been remotely scientific. There were too many variables. Jane looked to me as class was dismissed. We'd spent the last hour looking at deconstructed diagrams of the optical theodolite, and Jane could barely keep her eyes open. This only makes me wish I was back studying the definition of beauty. She stood up and I followed her to the door. I'd take this over philosophy any day. I handed my aesthetics textbook to Laura and took the new one, Applied Field Surveying. At least this one is a practical skill. Jane walked at my side in the hall. There are a lot of practical skills that I never have any intention of practicing. Are you really going to use field surveying? I laughed. When I get out of here, I'm going to open a field surveying business. Jane hooked her arm through mine. We could start it together. Half surveying, half aesthetics. We'll make $1 billion. I laughed. I still didn't know quite what to make of Jane. We hung out almost all the time, and it wasn't at all uncommon for her to put her arm in mine or take my hand. And while I was definitely not complaining, I had no idea if it was more than friendly. All the cultural norms of dating were foreign to me. When should you hold hands? When should you kiss? When were you officially a couple? But those norms had to be even more foreign to her since she'd been in this school almost her entire teenage life. The dance was tomorrow night. Maybe that would shed a little light on things. When we got to the cafeteria, Mouse was standing at the front of the line, arranging a stack of paper boxes and brown sacks on the table. I peered down at the handwritten label on one of the boxes. What's this? Mouse picked up the one I was looking at and shoved it toward me. Schedule changed. Eat it up in your room. Jane picked up a bag. What's the new schedule? Paintball, Mouse said. She winked at me. Maybe we'll meet again out there, Fisher. I sure hope so. We left the table and I followed Jane down the hall. A TV screen mounted high on the wall above the drinking fountain showed this change of plans. No afternoon classes, just paintball. We had only 45 minutes to change and get out there. Jane sighed. I already didn't have enough time today. She and Carrie had volunteered to be in charge of decorating for the dance. We'll have plenty of time, I said. I can stay up and help. She scrunched up her face and looked back at the TV. It's going to be a late night. I don't have anywhere to be in the morning. I can sleep through field surveying tomorrow. Jane laughed. I almost slept through it today. We headed for the stairs. She held up her fingers at me like a gun. Try not to get shot 100 times today. I don't want to hear you whining all night. I only get shot so you'll come heal me. I ate my lunch, a chicken salad sandwich and coleslaw, at my desk while Mason got dressed. I still had my crummy, non-camouflage sweats, but I was determined that would not stop me from playing better. Lily and Mason had taught me a little more about tactics, and I hoped to be able to try them out. Check this out, Mason said, tossing me a heavy plastic tube. It was about 3 inches long, and I saw it was actually 2 canisters taped together and slid inside a larger cylinder. I bought 2 of those after the last game, he said. I just got Okay. Oh, just got them this morning. Paintball grenades. You just throw it and it explodes? No, they're pressurized. One canister is air and the other's paint. Pull the pin, throw it, and it'll spin around and spray. Wipe out everyone in a bunker. I smiled and tossed it back to him. Then I hope we're attacking bunkers. They only came up for sale this month. I bet the other gangs have some too. Is it just a one-shot thing? That's gotta be pricey. You can refill the paint and buy new air cartridges. Mason walked to the door. I've got to find Lily before the game. Do you think you can find your way out to the field by yourself? Is it the same one? No, the other side of the school. Just hurry and you'll be able to follow somebody. I dressed quickly, picturing the game in my mind. Maybe the school was trying to train us to be soldiers, and maybe it wasn't, but I didn't care. I felt like paintball was helping me prepare for escape. I was learning how to move silently through the forest, how to hide, how to watch for attackers. Maybe that would come in handy soon. I hoped it would. I was only 4 or 5 minutes behind Mason, but most of the school was already empty. I could hear some voices down the society's corridor, but I didn't see anyone until I got all the way downstairs. Hey, Ben! Becky was coming out of her office as I passed. She was dressed for the game too, though she didn't seem to be enthusiastic about it as some. She wore camouflage, but just the most basic, cheap stuff you could buy, and she hadn't upgraded her gun. That was one of the first things anyone did. Her hair was still perfectly styled, and she held her mask in her hand as she walked. Hey, I said, you heading outside? Now I am, she said with a huge smile. Huge smiles were Becky's default. Just had to finish up a couple quick things. We walked out the front doors and down the steps. There were a few people on the edge of the forest, but not many. I checked my watch to make sure we weren't late. We still had 10 minutes. It's cold today, she said. If I was back home, it'd be snowing. Do you miss the snow? I shrugged. It's better than here, but I bet you have hellish summers. Becky flung her gun over her shoulder. She hadn't removed the strap. Even I had done that. It's not too bad, really. We were in the mountains, after all. I had nothing against Becky, but it felt strange talking to her anywhere other than in her office. The society didn't like me, and Isaiah probably wouldn't want us chatting. Then again, Becky was still trying to recruit me. Maybe her talking to me was an assignment. Are you excited for the dance? She asked. I guess. Seems a little ridiculous, though, don't you think? She frowned. I think it's nice. We're trapped here. They could just as well not let us have any fun. Maybe, but maybe if things were worse, more people would be trying to escape. Becky didn't answer. We finished crossing the lawn and entered the edge of the forest. I could see the other students gathered together 100 yards farther in. Then, I'm even more glad we're having a dance, Becky finally said. I started to laugh, but she quickened her pace, hurrying off toward where the society was gathered. Isaiah was already standing up on a rock when I arrived. He tore open the envelope. The scenario is fly the flag, he said. Each team has their own flag. You have to take it to the pole in the center of the field, raise it, and defend it for 5 minutes. Those grenades will come in handy, I whispered to Mason. Let me get there first. Blow them away. I don't know, man. This field is tough. That flagpole is up on a little hill. There's no good cover to get up there. Variant versus the society, Isaiah continued. Havoc will be rough. Each team gets a medic. Jane raised her hand again and got the medic badge. Dylan got it for the society. I hoped I'd get a chance to shoot him. Then again, the list of people I didn't want to shoot seemed to get shorter all the time. Isaiah continued, "The winners of today's game will get double points for all their contracts this week. The losers will get no points, but will still be required to fulfill their contracts." There were groans from both sides that quickly turned into taunts. "Game starts in 15 minutes, Isaiah said, and stepped down from the rock, handing the bullhorn to Oakland. I still didn't like the idea of Havoc as the refs. I wouldn't be surprised if they shot me themselves. Curtis gathered us as we watched the society hike off toward the other end of the field. "Okay," he said, keeping his voice low. "We worked something out for this scenario, and I like it. When the whistle blows, the society is going to charge the flag. Everyone always does. So this time we're going to do the same thing, except it'll be a fake." He pointed to Joel, one of the younger squad leaders. "Joel, you guys are fast. You, Gabby, and Tap-T charge that hill as soon as the whistle blows. I mean, run your butts off. The rest of us are going to get right on the perimeter ribbons, all of us, and run as fast as we can for their end. Joel's squad will slow the society from getting on the hill, and then the rest of us will hit them from behind." Joel nodded. "So we stay up there till we're dead?" "Yes," Curtis said, and then laughed. "But it'll be a noble death." "What if it doesn't work?" Joel asked. "What if we get pushed off and they get up there? If that happens, then we'll try to hit it from 3 sides. Lily from the right, me from the back, and Hector from the left. Got it?" He checked his watch. "Jane, you're with us." She nodded, and we broke the huddle, heading to the taped-off area. Lily, Mason, and I moved to the far right and waited at the ribbon. Lily pulled her mask down over her face, her hair pulled into a ponytail behind. She turned to me. "You're pretty fast, aren't you?" "Not fast enough to not get shot," I said, adjusting my own mask. She knelt down and grabbed a handful of moist mud from the base of a pine tree. "You sent your clothes to the wash," she said simply, and then began wiping the soil on my arms. I followed her lead, stooping to get more dirt. I thought washing clothes was a good thing. Besides, they were splattered with red and blue paint, not exactly camouflage. Rubbing it into the cotton sweats, I wondered whether it would actually do any good. The tan was so light it almost glowed. "Still better than bright and clean," she said. "What time is it?" I looked at my watch. 2 minutes. When we start running, just go as fast as you can, but stay at least 20 feet behind me. If I get too far ahead, try to catch up once I stop." "Okay." The whistle blew, and Lily took off like a rabbit, darting between the trees and bushes. She was wearing some kind of pack under her ghillie suit, maybe tied around her waist, but it didn't slow her down. I wondered whether she'd bought a bunch of paint grenades, too. I charged on behind her, but she was easily faster than Mason or me. To my left, I could see Joel, Gabby, and Tap-T running straight up the middle, the flag flapping in Gabby's hand. None of them had their gun raised. It was a full-on sprint. This field wasn't as big as the other, and it wasn't long before I saw the hill. I wanted to watch and see if our squad made it up, but my path was getting rockier, and I was having trouble keeping an eye on Lily. Suddenly, she dived to the ground. I dropped into a crouch and kept running, my gun ready. I didn't see anyone as I took up a position behind her. Mason knelt down next to me, panting. "Man, she's fast," I said, trying to calm down my own breathing. "Best player in the V's," he said, his gun pointed off toward her. "Probably the whole school." "She been doing this a long time, or just naturally good?" He laughed quietly, his eyes still on the forest in front of us. "Works on it constantly, always practicing. I bet this plan we're using is something she came up with." "She really wants to be the super soldier, huh?" Mason snorted. "Something like that." There was shooting somewhere. The bullhorn sounded. "The V's have raised their flag. The timer starts now." Lily looked back at me and motioned to follow her. She lifted into a low crouch and began slowly creeping left. I did the same. Almost immediately she dropped to her knees, ducking behind a tree. Shots hissed, popping into the ground all around her. Mason was firing behind me, but I couldn't tell what he was shooting at. Lily was pinned. I met her eyes and she gestured toward her attacker, but her hand signals were too vague. I watched Mason's shots, trying to trace them to the society sniper, but I finally figured he was firing blind. Everything fell silent. Lily peeked around the tree and paint splattered instantly into the trunk, and she had to hide again. Catching Lily's attention, I held up my hand, wishing that I knew sign language. 5 fingers, 4, 3, 2... I jumped from my spot, running to the left and diving for a tall bush. The sniper's paint followed me, crashing through the foliage, but there was no hit. I couldn't watch Lily. I was just trying to move fast, but in my peripheral vision I saw her turn and fire. "Hit!" someone called out. "Medic!" The distraction had worked. Lily got him. I expected her to form another ambush around the hit sniper. I wanted to wait for Dylan, but she was in a hurry. She gave me a thumbs up and then motioned for me and Mason to follow her. We moved toward the hill slowly and carefully. I was trying to walk the way Lily had taught me, stepping with the side of the foot and heel and rolling onto the flat of my foot. It was a lot quieter. The shots up by the flag were fast and unending, and I wondered how soon it would be before Joel's squad ran out of paint. We all carried spare packs, but there were hundreds of balls being fired. Lily moved from tree to tree, and I tried to watch her and scan for bad guys at the same time. Most of them should be attacking the hill. The 5 minutes had to be close to up, and the game was going to end if no one got our flag down. She left the cover of one pine and darted to another. Once she was in place, I moved from my rock, and I never saw him before he shot, but as I ran, I moved directly in front of someone in a ghillie suit hidden in the grass. "Medic!" I shouted, sitting down on a log. A moment later, my shooter called out as well, 2 blue splotches on his shoulder. Mason ran over to me and crouched for a moment. There was laughter in his voice. "You still haven't fired your gun, Fish." "The V's have lost the hill and their flag has been lowered," the bullhorn blared. "The timer is off." Lily motioned for Mason. "Sorry, Benson, we can't wait." I watched them leave. Mason seemed to know what he was doing, much more so than I did. But Lily was a pro, moving as quickly and deftly as a deer through the forest. When they were far enough from me that I wouldn't risk their position, I yelled again, "Medic!" There was silence for a moment, the hum of a distant four-wheeler the only sound. The guy in the ghillie suit spoke. "So, Benson," he said, stretching his back and then leaning against a stump, "are you still happy with your choice?" I looked over at him, trying to recognize his face under the camouflage. "Isaiah." "What choice is that?" He pulled a tube of paintballs from his belt and began refilling his gun. "Your choice of gangs. Have the V's been everything you wanted?" I kept my gaze on the forest around me, waiting for Jane to appear. "It's better than the others." He closed the plastic cap on the tube and then looked over at me. I avoided his eyes. The bullhorn blasted. "The society has raised its flag." Isaiah seemed to ignore the game. "Why are the V's better?" "Because you're crazy. Isn't that enough?" I cupped my hands and yelled again, "Medic!" "I didn't mean the society," he said. "But don't you think you fit a little better with Havoc?" "What does that mean?" I glanced at his eyes, which were still motionless. "You seem like you'd fit in well there," he said simply. "You're aggressive. You're more concerned about yourself than others. You're—" I felt my finger almost unconsciously slide onto the trigger of my gun. "I'm more concerned about myself than others?" His voice was calm and even. "Isn't that true?" "If anyone in this place can be accused of being selfish, it's you and your Boy Scouts. If you wanted to help anyone, you'd just call off security and we could all climb over that wall." Isaiah was completely cold. He didn't seem to react at all. "So we'd be over the wall. What would that do? Getting over the wall hasn't helped anyone in the past. Surely by now you've heard that no one ever escapes. Has anyone ever tried with a big group? All 72 of us? The guards can't kill everyone." Isaiah paused. "How many of us have to escape to make the deaths of the others worth it?" "Huh?" He leaned forward, setting his gun on the ground beside him. "Let's say all 72 try to escape. What are acceptable losses? 10? 20? If it means that you're safe and free, how many deaths are too many?" I shook my head and turned away from him. There were still shots in the distance, and the occasional yell, but the only movement I saw was a fat brown squirrel sitting in a tree chewing something. "You're in the society. Isaiah continued, whether you want to be or not. This school is a society, and we all have our roles. There are those who want to keep people alive, and there are those who want people to die. I shot him a look. Did Walnut want to die? He knew the rules. He knew the consequences. I cut my hands again. Medic! There was no sign of Jane. Without looking back at him, I spoke. So when does it end? How long will you keep people inside here and alive? Until the conditions require us to leave. I really don't know what you're fighting against, Benson. You have everything here you could ever want in a school. Food, education, recreation. I've even heard there might be something between you and Jane, and yet you'd risk your life and the lives of those around you because you just don't like being surrounded by a wall, and you say, I'm the crazy one. There was a sudden sound of footsteps, and I turned to see Dylan, his medic badge clearly displayed, running toward us. Is everyone angry when they first get here? Everyone is angry when they first get here, Isaiah said, raising his hand so the medic could see him. Don't do something you'd regret. Dylan's hand touched Isaiah's shoulder, and they ran off together. I watched them go, darting between the trees as they headed toward the flag. I hated him. I hated that I hadn't been able to respond. He wasn't right. I knew he wasn't right. His words made a kind of twisted sense, but I knew he was wrong. Someone was walking through the forest, but with a raised gun. Someone was dead. As the person got closer, I realized it was Lily. She had 2 bright hits on her shoulders, but her head appeared to be clean. I wonder why she wasn't waiting for the medic. Is Jane dead? I asked, as she got close. That would explain why she hadn't come to heal me yet. I don't know, Lily said. I'm hit. She didn't look over. I watched her leave, walking toward the ribbon. As she moved out of sight, another set of footsteps broke through the silent forest. Jane appeared, sprinting through the trees. Her head moved back and forth, scanning the trees until she saw me. She changed course, running past me like before, her fingers brushing across my back. Hurry, she shouted. Get to the hill. I jumped to my feet and set out. I ran, crouched down, gun forward, from a juniper thicket to a boulder, to a tall patch of grass. I was angry, and I could feel adrenaline pumping through my body. I hoped Isaiah was at the flag. The shooting at the hill continued, and I could hear lots of voices calling for medics. 1 minute, the bullhorn blasted. I was in the same situation as before, all alone, hadn't fired a shot, and now I needed to charge the hill. I took a breath and then ran, ignoring cover. The hill was right in front of me, but I didn't see anyone, and no one was shooting at me. I heard a voice at the top. Medic! Charging forward, I crested the steep hill. 2 people turned, looking surprised. One was Dylan. I shot them both, wildly firing and screaming at the same time. Dylan swore. He couldn't see it under my mask, but I was grinning from ear to ear. I dropped to my knees, waiting for someone else to shoot at me, but no one did. Reaching the flagpole, I wrapped my left hand around the rope. Game over, the bullhorn yelled. Society wins. What? I jumped to my feet, searching for the ref with the horn. Oakland was standing under a pine tree at the bottom of the hill, his hand holding a stopwatch. I scrambled down the rocky mound toward him. Curtis was already ahead of me. He killed the last 2, didn't he? Curtis said. Everyone in the society is dead. Oakland shrugged, smug. That's not how you win. At the end of 5 minutes, the society flag was still up. Curtis stopped himself and then turned away, his hands balled into fists. Mason appeared at my side. His camouflage was wet with white splatters. Nice shots, he said, pulling his mask up onto the top of his head. He grinned. We're going to have to work on your approaches, though. The suicide charge isn't always the best tactic. It worked, didn't it? Mason nodded and laughed. Yep. I just wish you were 10 seconds faster. That night, the V's gathered in the cafeteria, doing our best to turn it into a ballroom. Rosa had collected lamps from several of the dorm rooms, and she and a couple others were making new shades out of construction paper. A few of the guys were cutting long sheets of butler paper into strips for streamers, and Jane and I were working on a banner. It looked like a bunch of little kids had decorated their bedroom. So why are you always the medic? I asked, painting where she had instructed me to. She smiled. Because I don't like lying in the dirt. Really? No, not really, she said with a laugh. I don't like being in the squads. I get that, I said, leaning back to stretch. All of my moments of brave heroism have come when I was working alone. Jane laughed. I wish I'd been there to see that. It was very awesome. We still lost. That makes it even better, I said, dipping the brush in more paint. It's not nearly as heroic if you win. I was Bruce Willis blowing up inside the asteroid, or Slim Pickens riding the bomb. She pushed her red hair behind her ears so she could see what she was doing. I have no idea what you're talking about. There aren't a lot of movies in here, I conceded. That's got to be pretty hard on you, she said with a laugh. All you do is quote movies. I shrugged. When you spend a lot of time alone, you watch a lot of TV. You have to remember, Jane said, moving the conversation back to the original topic, that the gangs were formed less than a year ago. Before that, it really was chaos in here. Our old paintball teams never used squads. It was just us. I got used to being on my own. I nodded and then set my brush in a cup of water. Jane, what did you use to do before you came here? She looked up at me from the inside of her eye and then focused back on the banner. Why do you want to know? Just curious, I said. I think you're interesting. While that was true, I really did find Jane fascinating. Ever since the paintball game, I'd been thinking about what Isaiah had said. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was concerned only about myself. I didn't know how to fix that, but I thought I'd start with Jane. What did you used to do? She asked. I moved around a lot, I said. Foster care. No idea who my dad was. My mom took off when I was 5, I think. Left me with a babysitter. Never came back. She set down her brush. I'm sorry. It's all right, I said. I didn't want Jane to think I wanted pity. I don't really remember her. Anyway, since then I've just bumped around. Bluff, Elliott, Southside, not exactly the hot Pittsburgh tourist spots. Jane reached across the banner and put her hand on mine. Isn't this place a little better? And for a moment I couldn't think of a single reason I'd wanted to leave. What about you? She frowned. I was worried that she'd move her hand, but she didn't. Baltimore, she said, her green eyes no longer on me. You said that before, I coaxed. I was homeless. There was a long pause, and I wanted to say something comforting, but couldn't think of anything. Homeless. To go from that to here? No wonder she kept saying this place wasn't so bad. She finally looked up at me. I spoke. Will you go to the dance with me tomorrow? Jane smiled, the corners of her mouth slowly widening until I could see her white teeth and a look of pure joy. Her fingers curled around my hand, and I squeezed them back. Okay, guys, that was chapter 10. Pretty exciting.
Nope. Pretty exciting and long.
Oh, snap.
What?
He said it was long.
It was.
I'm trying to figure out how to pause
They were
this.
talking about freaking
I'm
balls the whole time.
still recording, dude.
Oh, you still recording?
Yes, I am.